Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to HETMA Presents. And today, HETMA presents the Road to 10K. We're here today to talk about what we are working on to be HETMA's best year ever. And we have an all-star lineup to do that in today's episode of HETMA Presents. So I think we should probably, we'll go in order of importance to the organization. So let's start with Mr. Troy Powers. Troy, how are you today? Who are you and what do you do?
Troy Powers. I am the vice chair of HETMA, and I work at Northwestern University, leading the support team for Central IT.
Cool. Thank you for being here. And I encourage everybody to watch online because you'll see Troy is full pro mode of having his HETMA cape prominently displayed for him, which is an excellent pro move. Next up, Mr. BC Hatchett. How are you? And who are you? And what do you do?
Couldn't be better, sir. My name is BC Hatchett. I am the Associate Director for Classroom Technology at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, and also one of the co-founders of this here fine organization.
And last but not least, Dr. Josiah Way. Who are you, sir? And who are you and what do you do?
They know who I am. You just said.
Yeah.
And by the way, when you said order of importance, you didn't say whether it was best to last or last to most, right? You didn't clarify that.
I wanted to leave that ambiguous for any fragile egos that might have been involved. They could hear it either way they wanted to.
I'm the only fragile ego on this. That's for sure. So yes, I'm Joe Way, Executive Director, Digital Spaces at UCLA is the day job, and also the other co-founder of HETMA.
All right. And for people tuning into HETMA Presents who don't already know who you all are, would be a little funny being that this is the cadre of leadership. So, but it's always fun to go through the introductions. And if you're tuning in and you haven't heard any of these voices before, you're in for a treat. And if they don't do a good job, I will do a good job and make sure that we get them to say something important. Okay. Now, all kidding aside, because I can't take anything seriously, HETMA did something kind of unprecedented, which is did a live streamed press conference. And the tag of it was, we are about to basically, we're doing something that is going to, be a big splash. It's going to change the industry. It's going to make an impact. And what we heard about was something that's been called the Road to 10K. So first, if you don't know what that is, get on the HETMA community. There's a lot of information about it, but let's dive a little deeper into it with some of the people who have really put time into putting it together. So Joe, let's start with you. What was the origin for you in terms of trying to think about not just rolling into a new fiscal year and advancing the things that we're already working on, but trying to give that a name and a framework and really kind of redefine how we talk about the advancement of what HETMA is and what it will be?
Yeah, good question. You should host a podcast sometime.
Of course, it's a good question. I asked it. It's like I knew it was a good question.
It's my line.
Oh, it's mine. Yeah,
you can steal it. It's fine. That is a good question because it's funny if you look at what we've done as an org in the last 6 years, right? I was joking before that we always kind of end every major event with kind of a major announcement, right? Whether it be an InfoComm or a virtual conference or whatever. And but as a board over this last year, and I know as Erin stepped in and her goal of kind of like, all right, we got to stop with the crazy ideas. Let's actually just do the stuff that we do well, right? Which was good. What it made us do was pause and go, okay, what was our whole point, right? And I kind of brought back the thought of, well, when BC and I were sitting around before and go, okay, well, how do we give a voice to those who don't have it, right? That was what we were founded on. And founded on that principle of kind of investing in our community of people as an advocate for them, right? To bring us to that channel line and have that influence as a vertical. That was the whole point of the org. And not to say that over the last 5-6 years we moved from that, but we grew so fast and had so many things happen, and everything that every initiative was because one of our members said, well, what about this? Okay, fine, let's do it. And we had all this momentum that it's like, okay, let's now go back to what we were founded on, right? And that's where I made this the post online where I said, when we announced the press conference, and I
Mhm.
said, I guarantee you, no one will guess what this is, right? And the idea was, okay, we got a lot of guesses. Oh, you're buying, you're acquiring this, or you're doing this, or you're making this. You're gonna like, no, we're actually going to invest in our people to make their lives better, make our vertical better, and be able to have the impact that only HETMA can have, right? Because we got so positioned that going, well, now let's use this power for good,
Yeah.
right?
I love that. I love that. There's definitely a feeling of like something new that is actually kind of returning to basics, both in terms of mission, but also that the taking a real a view of who are the members, what do they need, and how do we bring the resources of this org and have it look at developing individual members as well as how that develops the org in and of itself. Like it's kind of cool. It reminds me of the I don't know, the snake that's eating its tail almost, which is, God, that's not the right analogy for it. But it's like by doing that return, we're actually also growing the thing for the benefit of everybody. So BC, turning to you, when you look at that sort of balance of a history of new initiatives and looking and then taking this, which looks like a new initiative, but Joe's trying to tell me it's not. It's actually a return to basics. Like, does that what it look like to you? Is that how you think about what the Road to 10K means?
It does. I mean, it's kind of in a way, it's kind of a dual approach. Like we had to grow the org from just two people and then two people in a steering committee to what it is now. And to do that, we had to figure out what our community needed. I mean, there are a lot of end user groups out there, and they're all fantastic. I mean, they are the backbone of the AV industry. Um, but looking at kind of that from a bigger picture perspective, we needed that one connector to take it to the channel, right? To be that, advocating at a higher level, like we're looking at it from a C-suite area, right? Um, what do we need as as an industry as a whole, not just as a user group here or a user group there. So I think, spinning up the programs that we needed, they filled some much needed gaps in our community. And now that we've not fully addressed them, but we've addressed those and we have programs in place, now we can step back and refocus on the bigger picture and make sure that we're also still driving that ball forward as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree with that a ton, and it feels comfortable a little bit to look at this plan and to go like, yeah, there's a lot to sink your teeth into here that I think people can get excited about. Troy, now as vice chair, you are in the position of a lot of the the things that have to happen. They fall to you to make them happen. They fall to you to bring to fruition thoughts, ideas, plans, and growth. But one of the things that I think has been interesting over the last, and I think has really happened over the last year, where I think a year ago, there was a real conversation about how do we get more people involved in leading and moving things forward, to now where at our InfoComm this year, one of the really interesting hallmarks was nobody had to do everything because so many people were involved. There's a whole new generation of committee chairs and actual committees in some of these areas working with those committee chairs, sort of like we were talking about a while ago. So is there a part of this that you're looking at in terms of capitalizing on kind of that a relook at ourselves in order to enable what we can do with our initiatives?
I think I think what started maybe the Road to 10K is, wanting to grow engagement, right? And how does that happen? And, more members obviously would equal more engagement, but we also have a lot of members that aren't engaging fully now, right? And I think that is in part like the kind of the fix to all of what you've just said, right? If we have more members engaged, we've got more people, doing that, spreading that work, spreading the word of HETMA, and evangelizing us, right? And I think that's kind of the key to the next step for us as an organization is to grow that engagement with our sponsors and with our members.
I love that. Yeah, you're kind of drawing the distinction of quantity engagement versus quality of engagement, right? There's a lot of members, but what is that level of regular impact to meet that mission? So um, uh, in terms of like that pickup of engagement, how do you what are the things that are sort of planned to bring that about a little bit that are rolled into this?
We've got daily kind of prompts, and I think from the start, I think it'll be the board and chairs will kind of push that a lot, and kind of be pushing those prompts. But the hope there is that other people get engaged and enjoy those prompts and enjoy those discussions, and then it's just a natural conversation that's happening, and the prompts will still exist, and I think when this year's over, we'll come up with a new set of prompts and topics for next year. But I think at the end of the day, the hope is that the conversation is natural and just happens, and while the prompts are nice and can kind of steer some conversation, that there's other stuff happening in the background because we have an engaged community.
Yeah, I agree. And I love like the headline is Road to 10K, but the tagline that tells you what that means is our journey of professional, personal, and community growth, where it has that growth. It's not a sales goal. You know what I'm saying? Like while say 10,000 members is a sales goal, that is not in and of itself the thing we're looking to do. That is part of this overall growth that is in there. And to your point, like all of the things that we want to do to fulfill that original mission are aided by more people being involved and reaching people who are currently unconnected. So yeah, there's that duality of it is really cool. So Joe, back to you. Looking at the themes, well, that
Well,
smile was funny if you didn't see it.
It was.
That's pretty good. I'm going to screenshot that one for everybody. Okay. So for an organization that we're talking about advocating for higher ed AV professionals, we want to be active in the channels. We want to, be able to do that. And as I look at the monthly themes that are laid out for this month, I don't see the transition to AV over IP versus not on as a monthly theme here. Why not?
You mean, or our traditional back to school month and our traditional, what do we do? Holiday wish list, right? So because the funny thing is even with higher ed AV, we've always kind of done themes, right? But really, this was not to say, okay, the theme of this year is about that growth. You already talked about it, right? The professional growth is, yes, of course the company organizational growth, but the growth of our people. So the themes are based around things that will take you from where you are to where you want to go. Like, for example, this month being, True North. Where's your goal? How do you set goals? And all of those prompts that like Troy was talking about, the sense of what we're going to do every day, whoever is running, is going to be based around that theme. What's something that you can get? So if you come to our newly designed website or open the new iOS or Android app, all right, you're going to be able to learn and grow and share every single day in some way. Right. Hence, one of the other pillars of making daily engagement a habit. Right. And then we're going to move on. How to grow your network, how to handle failure, how to, keep your goals moving, how to, production, how to actually say no and take a rest. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Right. So all of these things that, how to add, I actually can't wait to how to advocate for yourself. And by the way, these are all placed on purpose where they are. Like how to advocate for yourself happens to be where we all do our annual performance reviews and we look at our raises, right? These are all there on purpose at times that we all struggle with because we hear about it. We hear about it on the community, right? But we've never said, okay, well, let's take our entire month and our entire year and formulate a plan around that, And I think that's what's, to me, really cool. And the fact is, look at the engagement that's happened already, and we're only 2 days into it.
Yeah.
It's just incredible to see. And yes, it'll take time and it'll take cultivation of it. But also, the good thing is as we grow members, because each month is also kind of its own thing, it doesn't matter when you come in. It's not like, oh, I missed month one, I got to wait till next year, right? you can jump in anytime and give and grow. So absolutely. I have no idea if I answered your question, but I loved my answer, even if I didn't.
And that is the kind of confidence we look for. You know what I'm saying? Which is, I knew it was a good question because I asked it, and you knew it was a good answer because you said it, and that's how that's how it works. I love it. So, I think there were, you know, in hearing feedback after the press conference and sort of what people thought was going on, BC, one of the things I heard, and going back to that kind of that question I asked Joe was, wait a second, this is supposed to be about AV, and I don't think I see anything about AV on this list. What would you like? What's your reaction kind of to that question?
Dude, if I have to talk about AV anymore, I swear to God, I'm not going to be able to handle it anymore. I think it's refreshing. I mean, you go to conferences or regional road shows or list serves or Slack channels, or I'm not calling out any individual ones, just speaking in generalities. And it's generally like, hey, what kind of projector do you recommend for this? Or hey, we're having this microphone feedback problem. It all advances, fixing your tech problems or getting, suggestions on how to do better, do technology better. But we really need to start addressing how we do our community better, how we do our careers better, how we better our teams. I think that's one thing, because I know that a lot of teams are under IT shops that have much more mature staffing models and much more mature goal setting models than AV. AV generally is too busy or extremely occupied putting out fires or doing that day-to-day support, making sure that our university is able to deliver learning, which is what our prime mission is. So we often sometimes get lost in the shuffle when it comes time to developing goals. Like, how do you create an overarching goal for a department, as opposed to, hey, I just want to go out and get this certification, or versus, hey, I want to increase my value to myself and to my organization and to my family. And I think it's a great pivot to a part of our industry that sometimes is overlooked.
I love that answer. I love that answer so much. I want to marry it. I don't know if people say that anymore, but yeah, I think that, like, to where Joe started at the beginning, what is the purpose of this org? There are a lot of places to get technical training. We don't need to recreate that. Are we a place to talk about technology? Absolutely. Go on our community is full of those same kind of questions, those things out there. But we don't need to recreate things that other people are already working on. It's trying to build on top. And I will just say, as over the past however many years, the conversations that I've had with people that have reached out for help with something is almost never, how do I make A connect to B? It is almost always, here's an issue with an employee, or here's an issue with my boss, or how do I advocate for myself? People don't understand the budget. It's those sorts of things that then we think that those aren't AV problems, but man, can it change the quality of what you can put in your classrooms by, understanding your own wellness and taking time away, taking care of yourself, and then being able to form the relationships that change where AV is situated.
And on top of that, I think it's also important to our community to know that this is an area where you can have those conversations. I think, a lot of people are scared to have that. I mean, you've got, one of the things we always hear about is imposter syndrome. And you're not an imposter. You're still learning. Hell, there's stuff I'm looking forward to learning about, especially when it comes to goal setting and selling myself. Like, that's, I've been in this industry over 20 years, and that's still something that I struggle with, even as a leader of a team. You get so ground down in the day to day. Sometimes it's hard to pull back and look at the much bigger vision, which, as a technology manager, you need to build that skill. And this is a great opportunity and a great group to do that in, because there's zero judgment. There's, we're here to lift each other up at the end of the day.
That's awesome. I agree. That's awesome. All right, Troy, and you see I'm doing the very official thing of moving from one person to the next person. I'll mix it up at some point, but I'm just so comfortable doing things in order. Troy, under big purpose, one of the bullet points is in there. We know grow to over 10,000, a membership to over 10,000. We've talked about make daily engagement a habit. Those things, but bullet point number 2 is all events become self-sustaining. In in that role of vice chair again, where things have to be operationalized, things have to happen. When you look at like, okay, a good big purpose is for events to become self-sustaining. How are you looking at the effort of this in order to make things like Infocom, ISE, road shows, our conference, the golf tournament, the awards, all of these event things that are going on? How does this help make them self-sustaining?
Well, I think, in terms of financials, I think most of our events outside of Infocom were already sort of set up to be self-sustaining in terms of financial sponsorships and things like that. So that, made it somewhat easy. Infocom, that's a bigger lift, and we're working through how that looks, and also ISE and other large scale conferences. We're working through how that looks. But I think kind of the bigger thing that it means to me is sustainability in terms of effort and time involved for putting on the events. Having hosted two of these regional roadshows, well, hosted one and one coming up next week. It's a lot of work, and if we had, like a template of you need to do X things, right? So it's these kind of things, like the operational, like document what we're doing and what needs to be done for each event, so that anyone who takes it on doesn't really have as big a lift as it's been in the past. I think that with Infocom, and Ann Kelly, having taken over my role as events chair, she did that in an amazing way and really kind of organized everything that the committee had kind of come up with before and put it into a place where Aaron, the new events chair, is really going to have an easy time of planning Infocom next year, because we know exactly what steps we need to take to get there. So I think that's the big key is and that great, BC. We're talking about documentation more. So I don't think that's that much different than AV, right? But I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Is documentation. So.
Yeah, you're articulating a little of the, many hands make light work theory. That is, more people involved means, more can be done. And yeah, I would agree on that. And especially for an org that is basically run on volunteers. Nobody's doing this as their main gig. Everybody's doing this as a side thing. Everybody's volunteering for it. One other question in that is, I think those of us that have put a lot of time and work in have gotten so much out of putting on events and gotten the satisfaction that comes from that. Do you see a part of kind of, not only does many hands make light work, but many hands spreads the belonging that comes from working on these things as being valuable to growth?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's any day, after you finish a hard day's work and can turn around and look at what you've done, like that feels good to anybody. I think it couldn't have been more evident than, Friday at Infocom. When we pulled that booth down and packed it away in 2 hours with, 30 people. It was very impressive, and we did it a year before too, and then 2 years before. It's a great kind of thing to see all those people come together and work together to a common purpose to get things done. And, there's no ego, right? And I think that's kind of the thing that stands out more than anything is, if somebody saw something, they would, whoa, stop. And nobody complained, nobody looked, nobody was gruff or upset. They just listened because they trusted, the people they were working with. And I think it just showed like what the community was all about. I couldn't have been happier with the way that worked out.
Yeah, I love that answer. The like you said, the lack of ego, and that it comes from being a volunteer organization. People are there by choice. People are choosing to put these things in, and so there's a baked in sense. Where as opposed to, bless their hearts, the other people working on booths around there who are doing it for a paycheck, or temp people that have been coming to do it, and we're there because people choose to be there. That builds that in. And as you mentioned, no ego. So I'd love to go back to Joe, but I don't think after you said the word ego, I can go back to Joe. So we'll,
But I wanna. But you know what? I'm going to hijack because I want to double click on something he just said.
Perfect. Go.
Because here's the thing, because I love that he went away from just the financial side. Yes, the financial side obviously is part of it, but if we're looking at our goal of expanding and expanding, especially into EMEA, and we were on calls this morning about some great things that might be happening, and being able to make connections as we go to APAC and we do these things. Well, up till now, our annual sponsorships and stuff have supported the org, and it is very expensive. But a lot of it has gone to, I'd almost call it marketing dollars, getting us to shows, getting us into InfoComm, doing these things. Well, we can't scale that to serve everybody. Maybe bring road shows to not main markets, like, oh, maybe Phoenix, right? That aren't the ones that always get the stops, like the New Yorks, the Chicagos, the LAs, right? And so to be able to do that, though, we have to have that template. We have to be able to say, okay, all of the sponsorship money we get is going to go to run this org and expand this org and be able to market and do those things. So that when we do our events, now is just what Troy said, and he's between you and Phoenix and Troy and Chicago have got that. You have put that template down and figured out what it is and figured out the secret sauce. So now let's scale that out so that other members can be empowered to take it. Say, here, all we're going to do is we're going to guide you. The template is done. Here's how you can get it. Here's how you can get the sponsorship. Here's how you're going to do it. Here's how how to put on a great event. And we can now use our org to manage rather than our org to be able to have to do. And that's where burnout happens. Like, we know every organization, right now we're at 3,000 members, right? A little over. And if you can't, but if we're there, well, the fact is, like every organization, we're free, right? Free and always will be. What's it take to join? You fill out the form online, right? Okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to have 3,000 active people? No, of course not. Now, we want to get to there. It's hence why we've done the re-engagement. We've done the redo of the site. But the fact is, like every org, there's always the people that join. It doesn't matter if you're a paid org or not, right? There's the people who, will come to something. And then there, is the 50% who just will join for the heck of it and be backseat watchers and lurkers. Then the 30% 40% that will attend something or call in once a month. But then the 10% who do probably 90% of the work. Well, that's not sustainable at scale, right? And so by being able to put this focus on self-sustainment that's the only way we can serve the 10,000 people is that way.
So, and I love the term double. That was a double click. That was a great piece of jargon you brought in here. Thank you for doing that. But the double click.
It's very executive director of me, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is very executive director of you. I was giving a similar speech to somebody. Okay. Double click on two things in there. I'll throw this out to everybody. So again, to Joe's point, asking a double-barreled question, which you're not supposed to do. But there's two things in there I thought they were interesting that you said, which is one, we're a free org. Like you said, people's level of involvement is a choice, where dues paying ones or other things like that, it feels like that orgs, what they want to do is deliver just enough to get you to pay your dues again next year. We don't have any dues. So what do we need to do for people? What they actually need in order to bring them in. That's one kind of difference that makes this, a little more dynamic. From that standpoint. And then I forgot the second thing that you said that was really smart that I really liked in there. So let's go with that. Like, how do we know? How can we grow and do that sort of thing in a place where people are free to come and go and their engagement is only going to be by their own interest? How does that set this apart from, let me ask it this way. It feels like at times what we're trying to do is build something that there's not a good model for. And I think one of the reasons is that is we are not following the standard association, incentive patterns that move around. So how, as the brain trust leadership of HETMA, how does that factor into talking about growth and engagement?
I think one of the distinguishing characteristics of HETMA is that it's always been organic, right? I mean, we've not had a plan from day one, and I think we're kind of proud of the fact we have not had a plan from day one. We just kind of wanted to see where this would go. And following that theme of seeing where this goes, that's kind of where I'm trying to figure out with my answer is that, where does this go? I mean, members can, like you said, they can pick and choose when to be engaged. And we'll value in that because like everything else with higher ed, we're cyclical. We're going to have times when everybody is completely loaded down and not able to engage, and there can be times when others can come in and, you know, fill that void, so to speak. So I think it's like I kind of go back to where I was at. I think it's going to be organic. I think, you know, we're going to have those engaging topics, those topics that are not normally talked about in the other AV organizations, and it's just going to continue to drive that want to be involved, and people will be able to drop in when they've got a few minutes, and then, you know, step away when they have other obligations to do. I mean, this should be just like a hangout. Come in, see your friends, talk with them, and then when you get bogged down, you can step away, and there'll still be plenty of folks around to carry on the flag.
Anybody else?
I'll
All
double
right.
click down on that.
All right, let's circle back to
You
Joe.
opened it
Joe,
up.
you have the floor.
You opened it up and you had a long enough pause. I was gonna hold off, and then I thought, well, you know what? One thing I hate is dead air. So there we go. So
Yeah.
no, but BC pretty much nailed it about, you know, kind of that come and go. Think about, like we talked about, we're not the typical tech thing, right? Because we consider ourselves advocacy business channel partners, right? That business arm of our vertical for the AV industry, right? Well, does that mean that you can't get training through us? Well, absolutely no. We do a virtual conference. You can learn and grow, right? But the same thing, like look at the HEX program that we're now really going to be able to kick off and get going. Is this our own training and certification? No. What we're doing is we're saying there's a lot of great things out there. Avixa does great things. Our manufacturers do great things. All of that. So let's help guide you to those resources, right? And help you find what fits you and for our vertical, right? It's a completely different way of looking at this, as opposed to we don't need to bring you the training. We'll bring you to the training, and then let the people who do it and do it well give it to you.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be our way. We're not trying to create something that already exists, but that's a good point, is the connections, people to people, people to resources, business to customer, customer to business, you know, all of that place where those things come together with a focus then on, you know, growing the number of people we can get connected and deepening the connections that are there. I love it. I love it. All right. I remembered the second barrel question, and this will be one that I think has come up, you know, a couple of times, and I'm curious to put that out there in terms of, you know, making events sustainable. This is an org that's now growing to the point of really trying to do a lot of things, trying to really, you know, be a larger layered organization operating at the speed of the business with all volunteers involved. Why not then hire a company to do it for us instead of have volunteer people do it themselves? That seems like it would follow the model that we've seen, you know, be successful with other large organizations.
You know, I'd be lying if I didn't say we hadn't discussed that at some point, especially in the early days when it was a lot to do. But just kind of like with our booth build, there's something organic about it. You know, we are able to take ownership, and like Troy was talking about earlier, at the end of booth build, or at the end of the education summit, or at the end of Infocom, or at the end of the virtual conference, it's great to step back and say, our community did this. Our community stepped up, put out the work, and took ownership of this to do this for basically ourselves, to do this for other folks. And there's just something about that it's hard to reproduce if you're engaging with an outside group to do it for you.
I mean, and you think about. Oh, go ahead, Troy.
It
was a long pause, so
it means something that we do the work ourselves. Like, it matters. Like, that matters. That's an important. I mean, to me, I see some nods, but like, that matters to me, that it's us doing the work, and it's not some company, some nameless company that doesn't care at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, and think about this. If we really say we're going to invest in the lives of our people, we're giving leadership opportunities. We're giving growth opportunities. How many people, like, think about this. If you look at a lot of our chairs, their titles at work are support analyst, senior technician here, right? That don't get that leader. They're leading a multi-million-dollar organization, right? And that's a resume line item. That's experience you're not going to get if we just go pay a company $50,000 to be our email server and to give us a website, right? We can go and do this stuff and empower people in ways that they can now go and look at it's paid off. I mean, people have changed jobs and got new jobs because that was a line item, right?
Yeah. You think between the things that Troy and Ann and Chris have done in putting on events, that if the three of them wanted to go start an event company and kill everybody, like, you know what I'm saying? You got master's degrees in what it takes to do that and do it well at this point. Because, yeah, leader. We've talked a lot about the difference between being a manager, being a leader, and that opportunity to exhibit leadership within HETMA, regardless of what your role is on your campus, is kind of a cool thing that sets it apart. I love that. So, and that's actually sets up a pretty good transition to look at. So, there's a 12-month calendar laid out of themes, and we are here in the first week of July, and the theme for July says the following: True North, the future of you. Clarify your personal mission and your professional purpose. Why do you do what you do, and where do you want to go? Anchor your future progress. So as we're going in now to this first month and we're looking at discussions and growth that is kind of centered around that idea, how do each of you kind of engage with that theme from your own particular person?
Let him talk first.
All right. See, I was trying not to steal it all. It's so hard for me to not steal the spotlight. I really have to try that. God, it's funny because this first one of kind of setting goals and all, I will be honest, I hate goal setting so much. Okay, I know we have to do it, and you do the performance review, and then what are you going to do for next year? And I guess I'm not supposed to say that, having entire like verticals underneath me at work and stuff. But that's also because like I'm very much a spontaneous person. Interaction, idea, and go do it, right? And if I don't go do it the second I have the idea, it won't get done. And it might have been a great idea, right? And so for me, I I think I actually learned a lot in this last year not being chair, even though kind of like the person who stepped down from being vice chair has been busier with the orgs and saying they had no time to be busy with the org, Ryan. And so, but the thing is, I've learned a lot by stepping back and watching from afar and saying, okay, Aaron's doing an amazing job here saying, okay, we're done with the crazy ideas. Let's do the crazy ideas that are great ideas, but do them right and do them well and have them serve our people. So it's made me sit back even in my day job and go, oh crap, yeah, I'm a visionary, right? That's what, if you kind of like that, but visionaries only go so far if you're not effective in implementing the vision, right? And so being able to step back. So for me, for setting goals, I can have the vision. I can have the stretch goal, like I talked about today on the Think Big Thursday. But I need to empower other people to make it happen. So my goal setting this year was, how can I invest in the people that are going to make my goal happen? And I think that goes right on with HETMA too, right? That's why do we set up a new thing? Like I think we've got this whole calendar. It's very unlike. I mean, the fact that we're organized and have an annual calendar. You really, that's like BT said, we've been organic. Like that's the first time we've been that organized before as an org, right? So I think being able to say, okay, let's set this up and now let's let people go and empower them to pull this off, right? And empower that. And that's exactly what I've done personally and done in my own work too, is saying, great, I'm here running this incredible org now, and especially with Hatchett, and I went and created this incredible team. Why am I still setting the vision? I've got this great team with crazy ideas of their own. How can I let my goals be to empower them, right? So I don't know if I answered your question again, but that was my personal thing.
I love it. No, because talk about clarifying your personal mission and professional purpose in those ways and the crossing it over between areas that, the day job and the side hustle and all that. You mentioned, and I just want to put, you said the word goals and goal setting a few times in that answer. That word does not appear in this at all. What is it about this theme that makes you think goals and goal setting?
That's a good question. Again, that was a good one. You should have a podcast one day. I think it's because when I think of like that theme of true north. Like, where am I going? Right? Like, I know where I'm at. I know well, why do I do what I do? But it's like, okay, there's a point where organic only goes so far, or at least for me, right? Like, I can't be so, flippant with it. Maybe it now comes from being, grandpa as well, and another one on the way. So another
Hey,
on the way. Um,
congratulations.
but I think that it comes with going, all right, I have to have an endpoint. I've always run my life with not knowing where the endpoint is, and that's okay.
Mhm.
The forks in the road are great, and then when I get there, I got another fork in the road. Um, but that's why I read it to, okay, where do I go? Well, if I'm thinking about where I go, that's a point somewhere. That's a goalpost somewhere.
Mhm.
It's very against me. I mean, and I'll be honest, we set this up, and yeah, I'm doing this as well. This isn't just, here, this is for our members to go do, and it'll be cute. I'm literally doing this myself.
And okay, double down, because like the 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 things that are in here are there is no expert, there's no right answer to any of them. It is open-ended. It is what breeds collaboration and creativity and new ideas because of that. And so that's where, like, I was really interested. Yeah, goals, we all know how to write a good official SMART goal. It's attainable and it's measurable and it's this, and this calendar does not tell me if when we get to the end of it, other than a number of 10,000, which is kind of the only quantifiable thing, what it's talking about is growth. And that's that thing that I think is up to everybody and that we can bring together. And not a matter that it's ambiguous, but that it's okay for it to be different for each person. I love. So yeah, I mean, no big question here, BC. What is your personal mission and professional purpose?
Survive and advance.
Hold the ground you've taken and take more ground as you can.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, I mean, it's, a lot of times that I joke about it, but we are a lot of the times in survival mode, like just making sure the things get done. So it doesn't oftentimes, like you said, there's no wrong answer, but oftentimes just in my environment, it's hard sometimes to kind of step back and say, all right, where do I want to point this thing now that we've got it stood up and working? So that's one thing I'm looking forward to with some of these new initiatives, that it'll allow me to rethink how my career is tracked, how, what I'm doing with my team. Am I best serving them by being in the trenches or pointing them at something and say, get it done? Or do I need to provide more structure, less structure? How do I run this thing that I built better?
And that idea of, like, yeah, there is so much of the time that it feels like you're under siege, but being anchored in the why you're there in the first place can at least change the mindset. It may not change what's happening, but it can change how you think about what's happening, to have that personal mission there. And it's one of the reasons I love that this is the first theme out of the gate, as some of the other ones come to fruition, like advocating for yourself and some of those other ones, being grounded in your own why. And again, which is different for every person, makes those way more accessible to start from that place. So then finally, Troy, I have heard on a very fine podcast, Troy articulate a little bit one time about sort of some of the grounding of his why. I mean, the question I love to ask people is, why on God's earth have you chosen to spend your life doing AV work on college campuses? And I don't know if you'll remember his answer straight up, but I have used it. I have repeated it to other people a number of times. So Troy, do you feel like, first, you have a good feeling of personal and professional purpose and you're looking to build on it? Or is it something you're still thinking, this is an opportunity I need to do some searching?
I mean, I have an idea of kind of like, I mean, to me, True North, I think goals is like, that's a great, kind of thought process too. But to me, like, True North is that thing that like anchors you when you fail at all your goals, right? When everything goes wrong, and I can turn around and I can like hold on to that ledge, right? And say, this is, that's to me what like True North is, right? It's stronger than a goal. I mean, like, it could be a goal, right? But it's bigger than that too. And yeah, I mean, like in terms of like what anchors me is like I love what I do here. You know, I went to school to be a teacher, like that was the plan, and then I just fell into working AV and I stayed with it. And I love working in higher education because I get to still kind of be around like educating young people. And you know, working at Northwestern, they're doing amazing things. Like the research they're doing is incredible. Well, I mean, less of it now, right? With no money. But the research they're doing is incredible, and to be like a small part of that, you know, to be able to support them and doing like groundbreaking things in their fields, like that's cool. You know, like I like doing that. And there aren't a lot of other places where you can do that. You know, so.
I love that. Yeah. And that true north is something intrinsic, not extrinsic, right? That thing that you know to be true, regardless of what comes out, that can help you move forward. That's very cool. I love that. Okay. I was just like, wow, I think I need to find that for myself now. That was
Yeah.
kind
What
of,
is yours? What is your? I think you have to answer that question too.
no. I'm sorry. I'm the host. I'll be asking the questions today. No, I love talking about me. Me is my favorite topic. I'm not sure if anybody's ever noticed that before. I think, you know, I've said an easy answer for me on this is you can work in technology everywhere. You know, I choose to do it in education because I believe the betterment of the human condition involves enlightenment. You know what I'm saying? And that the mission of education is one that is much larger than myself. I also come from a history of educators. You know, like my family has been educators top to bottom, and so it's natural in that. I think part of I have to question every once in a while, like, why do I spend so much time outside of the job that pays me to do all these other things that we're doing and all that? And is that an intrinsic or an extrinsic motivation and that sort of thing? But to me, the thing that just keeps coming back are the faces and the stories and the people I know that I never would have known any other way. And the people who've gotten other jobs, or the times where I've been able to think about a problem a different way because I had a relationship with somebody that had seen it from a different perspective. You know, it fills an extroverted bucket, but it brings value, you know, in a way that I don't think I could find anyplace else.
Man, I tell you that my favorite day on campus, there's two favorite days that I have on campus, move-in day and commencement day. I love both of those times, seeing the new students at campus, and then commencement day is kind of that tangible result of all the work you put in for the year. You see those students walk across the stage in their regalia, and they're getting ready to go out, and as cliche as it might sound, they're ready to go out and change the world. They're going to go out there and fix all the problems there and make things better. It's To me, it's much better than selling 300 units of this widget or 500 units of that widget. It has a tangible impact on society.
I love that. And that's where I think that makes a really interesting topic for our vertical to have as the first one, because I think a lot of people could be, like you said, making more money or doing something else somewhere, and they've chosen to work in this field. So there's a lot of ground to cover there. So as we look to wrap up this, which is the first installment of HETMA Presents the Road to 10K, first, be ready at the beginning of each month for an episode to come out looking at that month's theme with new voices, people that really want to spark that conversation and get things going. But as we close out for the three of you, when we're doing episode 12 in June of next year, and we're thinking back on the road to 10K, what would the standard question is, what would success look like? You know, what would you say? How will we know if we're successful? But I think, given the way this is going, what do you think success will feel like a year from now? Not necessarily just look like.
Thought about this ever since we rolled this out, and having that member count at 10K plus, that right there is a numerical success. But I'm looking forward to seeing the level of engagement in our community just ramp up and be explosive, and see all of our folks talking on a daily basis and celebrating their accomplishments, and seeing where people have moved their careers between June of 25 and June of 26. That's what I'm looking forward to the most, is those posts, hey, I got a new job, or hey, I wrapped up this certification, or hey, my team was recognized on campus as, being a top performer because of lessons that I learned during this year. That's what I'm truly, truly looking forward to.
Troy?
20K. That's right.
Let's go.
Success. I don't know. I think to kind of echo, and not to be negative, but to echo what BC said, I think if we hit 10K or if we even hit 20K and we didn't have a spike in the engagement in the community, I don't know that would be success, right? I think ultimately the underlying goal here, while Road to 10K is a great hashtag, the goal is to grow the community, and that means engaged community. So I think I would echo what BC said.
Yeah, those are two good answers. Dang it. There's one advantage to answering first. No, you can't. There's nothing to compare against. So I'm gonna say it. So I remember being at Infocom. Oh my God, it was 2 years ago. It was at Miller's Ale House, and Annie was there, and she was there with her boss. I think this was before her new. She'd either just gone to her new school, or is it? But anyway, I think she had just gone.
Just gone, yeah.
And she was talking to me, and she kind of pulls and says, "Hey, I just want to thank you and for like creating HETMA and stuff." I started tearing up into this, and I was like, it was so like it just took me like I just got taken back going. And she's just like how much she's gone and gotten out of having an org like HETMA. And I know that it's impacted lives, but to like see it and the emotion that she had and the true like my life wouldn't be where it is if it weren't for this organization, right? And I remember saying like, and I still flush and thinking about it. So to finally take your short question and turn it into a longer answer, I think I want more of those, right? And not like selfishly, I want those, but if this, because I don't like crying in the middle of Miller's ale house, but those moments of impact, so that we've done something, and I think that these 6 pillars to our goal of Road to 10K, and broken down into, of course, the 12 months of themes into the 5 days each week of how to get there, right? Just imagine the lives that will be changed. I think I messaged this group. I remember messaging BC when we were talking about this, going, if we really pull this off, how many lives will actually are going to be changed off of this? And where like there's people who haven't even found this org yet that will be in a different place because of it, right? And that's exciting. That's success, right? And I don't want to just use well, if it only helps one person, it's worth it. Well, look, we can impact. We're gonna help 10,000 people or more, right? I mean, because how many people get impacted from the success of our people that don't even know it because they're bringing that to their work, they're bringing that to their families, right? The raises that are gotten can now afford more things for your family, right? This becomes exponential, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Joe, BC, Troy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk this down and to help people hear, kind of that first person feel of what this could mean, and hear like the hope that everyone has for it, and the enthusiasm is awesome. I'll close with you said kind of what I was thinking about my answer to this would be, and part of it went to what I said before, which is, the people that I know now that I never would have. And I can't wait for the people that are in the 4,000, the 5,000 block, the 6,000 block, those people that I don't yet know, and not only what this org can do for them, what they'll be able to bring back into it. What are the future relationships that can grow from being bold enough to set a bar, run for it, and think about in terms of quantity, quality, and growth in terms of size and depth at the same time. So from me, thank you each for what you've done to put this out there. And here's to, a great year of making this happen.
Best year ever.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan.
Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of HETMA Presents The Road to 10K. Please stay tuned for more shows on this feed. If you are not subscribed to HETMA Presents, now is the time to hit the button and subscribe, as there is great content coming your way all throughout the year. And thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to HETMA Presents. This show is a production of Higher Ed AV Media. Please visit higheredav.com to learn more about this show and a host of others. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. We'll be back soon with more HETMA Presents.